City of Emeryville as successor agency for the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. This is our blue agenda this evening. I see that we're all still here after closed session and our special meeting. Please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now is the time for public comments.
Scott Donahue, 1420 45th Street. I believe it was last meeting, Councilmember Brinkman was concerned about Turner Construction not signing the contract. I believe he was rightly concerned about this, and I think he really suspects that it's a problem because he knows, and anybody who's been to San Francisco and looking at construction knows, that there is literally $2 billion worth of construction going on in San Francisco. It is a tough position, I believe, for Turner Construction to get subcontractors. You know, this is really, I can imagine that could be a huge issue. And I can just envision this being a huge issue for our city, that we're getting close to this need that we have to make a decision. And it's dependent upon this contract. And I think this is something that we cannot be rash about. I think that we have to be able to keep thinking flexible. If they don't sign, if they want an hourly agreement, you know, we have to be very careful. I think, you know, I think something like an hourly agreement to do work in today's construction environment could be really deadly for our city's budget in the future. And I just think that somehow we have to keep flexible hats on in deciding about our future, and maybe have to think about things differently in some way if things go how they're looking like they could go. That's my only comment about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment this evening?
Good evening, Mayor Asher, members of the City Council. John Sugiyama, Interim Superintendent for Emory Unified School District. And it's a pleasure to be here this evening to introduce to you two new members of the Emory USD family. Okay.
They're right behind you, yeah.
Let me first introduce to the council Dr. Christian Patz, and he has been sworn in as the provisional board member to complete Mr. Simon's term on the school board, and had his first meeting last week. And he hails to us from Mount Diablo Unified, where he's a special education administrator, so he has a lot of experience in understanding school districts and the issues districts face. So it's great to have Dr. Patz with us. And then to my right, some of you have met him informally, but Dr. John Rubio is our incoming superintendent. And he comes to us from the Live Oak School District in Santa Cruz County, where he was assistant superintendent for educational services, curriculum, and instruction. So it's great to have both of them here. As the council knows, Emeryville is a very busy place, and with the school district also, we have a lot of things that we're working on. So it's great to have both Dr. Rubio and Dr. Patz on board as part of the Emory family. So,
Welcome.
And it's also good to have you here, John.
Yeah.
We appreciate
June
seeing you.
30th.
June 30th. Who's counting? Did either of you want to say something?
Did you want to speak? Yeah.
I just thank you for having me tonight, and I'm really excited about what we can do on the school board and get Emeryville's going in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I similarly wanted to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you. Looking forward to, I feel fortunate to walk into such a strong city-school district partnership, and I'm excited by that. And I know you've been doing a lot of good work and hard work for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to helping with that. So very glad to be here. Look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah. Thank you, and welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming this evening. Any other public comment this evening? No. Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
I'm sorry, that was Davis and
Atkins.
Okay, moving on to item 4.1.
So, Mayor, at your pleasure, if you want to open up the City Council agenda as well, so we can consider this item in conjunction with the City Council agenda item.
Okay. I've never done this way before, so please pardon me as Mike helps me do this correctly. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and open up the Emeryville City Council regular meeting. Again, we're all here. We've done the pledge and the roll call. There are no special orders of the day. At this time, Mike, then do I take public comment on that?
No, you can take public comment when we get, after we get through this item, when you
On the
open up
agenda. Okay,
regular
so they're
City
just both
Council agenda.
simultaneously opened.
Yes.
And I continue to go through the successor agency. Thank you.
Okay. So before you combined items of the City Council and the successor agency, the items that before the City Council relating to consideration of the master joint occupancy agreement between the city and the school district, as well as consideration of the contract between the school district and Turner Construction. Those items are not going to be considered tonight. They will be considered at a future meeting that we, at this point, are anticipating will come back to you on Wednesday, August 6th.
So we're pulling items 8.3.1 for the public and 8.3.2.
Correct, thank you. At this time, we are asking the council to consider the resolution designating the city manager as the agent for the hazard mitigation grant program and the pre-disaster mitigation program, which is a grant for seismic retrofit of the high school gym in connection with the ECCL project. Likewise, we're asking the council and the successor agency to consider the amendment, First Amendment to the ECCL funding agreement that's between the city and the successor agency. Again, the pre-disaster mitigation program is a $600,000 grant provided through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the money would be specifically earmarked for seismic retrofit of the high school gym, which is part of the ECCL project. This resolution essentially designates the city manager as a representative agent of the city to apply for and sign all requisite documents in connection with that grant. And so we're recommending that the council approve the resolution doing those actions. The next matter is between the city and the successor agency. This is the First Amendment to the ECCL funding agreement. Back in February 2013, the city and the successor agency approved a funding agreement authorizing the city to utilize successor agency bond proceeds for the ECCL project. The funding agreement was placed on the recognized obligation payment schedule of the successor agency for the ROPS 1314A time period. And that agreement and the ROPS were approved by the Emeryville Oversight Board, but thereafter was denied by the Department of Finance. And the reason that the Department of Finance denied the agreement at that time was that the successor agency had not yet received its finding of completion. And the reason we had not received it is because $16 million of money that was identified as part of the due diligence review for the successor agency had not been turned over and paid to the county, because those funds were subject to the lawsuit that was brought by the successor agency and the city against the state with respect to funding for the South Bayfront Pedestrian Bridge, Transit Center, and repayment of Sierra loans, which the city and the successor agency had found in favor of the city at the trial court, that those agreements were in fact enforceable obligations. And so the city and successor agency and the Department of Finance entered into a stipulation where we placed those monies in escrow. In exchange, the finding of completion was issued to the successor agency, and also the state authorized the funding of the ECCL funding agreement, and that agreement was to be placed on the next available ROPS. Well, the actual agreement identified a different ROPS period. So what we're doing is just amending, technical amendment to the agreement to make sure that the agreement language is coincides and is consistent with the language in the stipulation. The other amendment is that we also want to revise the provisions of the agreement to allow for the bond funds to be transferred from the successor agency to the city during this ROPS period, which ends June 30th. And in exchange, we would also add a condition relative to the city's ability to spend that money, which would be that the city could not spend it until the city and the district entered into the master joint occupancy agreement, and the city had also approved a construction agreement with an appropriate general contractor for the site. So this allows for the money to be transferred to the city before June 30th. Otherwise, if that's not provided, we will have to place that on the next ROPS and go through that whole process again with the Department of Finance. And the earliest we would have the monies available would be January 1, 2015. So staff is recommending that this amendment to the agreement between the city and the successor agency be authorized.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have public comment on this item.
Okay, I'm not an attorney, so I heard a lot of legal speak happening there, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but insofar that you're being asked here tonight to cough up money for the city's portion of the Center of Community Life, I have some comments I'd like to make. For one thing, from what I understand, we already have, or had until recently had, and I understand a 99-year lease with the school district so that we can use the pool and the gym and the athletic fields. And so we have that agreement already that they have to honor that agreement. But now we're dispensing with that and instead giving them $21 million for essentially the same uses of school property. So that's not wise. But mostly I'm concerned that we were told last autumn that before we give the district our $21 million, we were going to find out about the new operating budget and maintenance budget of the Center of Community Life. Now, at first, as everyone here knows, that this was very oversold to us as a money-saving mechanism because of consolidation of the two school properties into one. We were told that's going to be a large money-saving mechanism for operating and for maintenance. And then we came to find out last autumn the operating budget was going to be doubled and the maintenance budget tripled. And there were some gasps out of the council, and you told the district to come back with different numbers that were not like that. And instead, what we did, they didn't do that. Instead, they just rolled those operating budgets and maintenance budgets into the last city budget that was talked about at the last council meeting. And so we never found out, we never got an accounting about the maintenance budget and the operating budget. There was never an accounting. Now, we understand that they were now purchasing more city community services, so that's great. If we want to do that, that's wonderful, but we need to get an accounting. What happened to our savings? So first we want to see the savings, and then we should, then as a city, decide to increase the services rather than just this hocus pocus, this sort of ledger domain, this sleight of hand. And I just think it's wrong. I don't think we should operate like that. The last thing I wanted to say is the school district are bad partners to engage in an agreement with. Just look at how the citizens and the parents that have been dissenting voices on the wisdom of closing Annie Yates Elementary School and consolidating with the K-12 model at the Center of Community Life. Those citizens have been summarily sort of dismissed, and the dissenting voices have been sort of quashed by the school district. And I don't think they're good partners.
Okay. Any other public comment on that item? Okay. I'd like to hear from council.
I have a question.
I just want staff to address the operating and maintenance budget question that was just raised. I know that this is something we are not considering tonight because we have put off the joint occupancy agreement, which covers the operations and maintenance budget. But in the interest of addressing public comment, could staff touch on that or at least explain a little bit?
In the staff report for the joint occupancy agreement, even though you're not taking action on that tonight, it is in your packet, and there are details on how we came up with some estimates for the annual O&M costs, and it was taking some of the initial numbers that we received from the district, and then we did our own analysis of it. That is on, you can find that detailed on pages 17 of 26 through which?
I think it's 20.
Through 20
Thank
of
you.
26. And those costs have been included in your operating budget proposal coming up later.
Which we are voting on tonight. And
Right.
so in a sense, that's why I wanted you to address this now, is just that we are voting on our own two-year budget, and it incorporates the analysis that staff did on what the costs will be to operate and maintain this facility once it's online.
Yes.
Okay.
I know the the clock is ticking on using the FEMA money for the mass shelter. So is there a time frame by which it has to be spent? Otherwise it goes back to the feds?
That part I don't know. This
Or
is
just
not my-
encumbered?
Let me look at the,
And just while you're looking that up, just for the public to know, this is a $600,000 FEMA grant for furbishing the gym to serve as a mass shelter in times of declared disasters.
the performance period currently runs from June 27th, 2013 to June 26, 2016. So you have until June 26th of 2016 to use the monies.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor Asher, if I could suggest on that, all this resolution does is appoint the city manager as the agent. It really doesn't get involved in whether you're accepting the grant or pursuing the grant or anything like that. It just designates the city manager as the agent. And I'd like to go back to the successor agency item. The resolution of the city council approving and authorizing to enter into the First Amendment. I think this is a time issue, and Mr. Biddle brought forward that if we don't do this now, we're going to have a significant delay because we'll get back involved with the ROPS and the state. We want to avoid that at all costs. With that in mind, I would move approval of the successor agency action, that resolution.
I would second that.
Thanks, and I agree as well. I think this is one step towards the decisions that we will be making in August, August 6th. I'm glad in a sense that all of the information was put forward in our staff reports and in this packet, and the public has a chance to see it, although we are not considering some of the items tonight. But I agree with moving forward with the successor agency and city exchange of those funds. I do want to make just one other comment on this item, which is peripherally related again, because we're not considering the joint occupancy agreement and the facilities lease and construction contract. But to comment on the operating and maintenance costs that the city manager just pointed out, I don't remember the exact numbers from before when it came to council, but I believe what's estimated here is approximately $200,000 per year for the operating and maintenance costs borne by the city. I believe it was somewhere closer to $400,000 per year, maybe when it came forth before, 300 and something. And so I'm relieved that our analysis shows that it's not as expensive as we first thought, which was kind of sticker shock for a lot of us. And the percentage there is 18% borne by the city and 82% borne by the school district. And to me, that seems like a good and fair distribution. So I'm pleased to see those improvements in our operating costs anyway. And then the second point I wanted to make is about one of my favorite topics, which is bike infrastructure and walkability in town. There is a bicycle pedestrian path that is designated in our general plan to go behind this project, and as part of the redevelopment of the site was to be incorporated. It has not been included in the plans that are moving forward, and it is to be accommodated in phase 2. And I will make some more comments about this as we get to our capital improvement program discussion tonight, because it is listed in our 5-year SIP plan as well. But I'm still concerned about the integration of this path into the project, and I just want to put forth the importance of that to me personally. And when we come back to considering these items in August, if the council hasn't made some other indication, I'm concerned about my ability to move forward on this project without incorporating that path. So and we'll talk about this more as we get to the SIP conversation this evening.
Well, I was going to just clarify that. We've had a lot of conversations about this path.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a little bit of blackmail on your part.
No, I'm not trying to blackmail.
Well, that sure sound like it, Jennifer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hope to clarify my comments. If you want me to now, I can do it. Or in the SIP. Okay. It really has more to do with our capital improvement program discussion this evening, but I am encouraged by some of the information that staff has brought to me, and I have some questions actually for the school district. So maybe if you're not sticking around, this would be a good time to ask those questions. My first question is, when is phase 2 planned for the ECCL project? I don't know if you can answer that on your second day at work.
Yeah. He hasn't even started officially.
Oh, I thought you started yesterday.
No, July 1st.
Yeah. Okay, maybe our staff could answer the question about phase 2 and when it's planned to be completed.
I can't. I don't know.
Officially said no date.
That's, I would say the same.
Okay, so as I understand it, the bike ped path is to be incorporated into phase 2, and to me that's of concern because I think it's critical that we put this infrastructure in place when we have opportunity. As I mentioned, the path is fully accommodated in the current plans. The school district made sure in good faith that the path could be built and in fact rearranged things on the field to make that possible, and I'm appreciative of that. My next question is the real impediment the funding, as has been mentioned in the past, for the path, or is the school district going to resist putting the path in? Safety concerns were brought up previously, and I feel hesitant to put you on the spot, but I want to know if it's truly the money that is keeping the path from being built, or if there are other issues.
Well, I would say, and I won't speak for the school district,
Right.
and to put Dr. Rubio on the spot on his unofficial day here. Per the direction of the city council and the school board, we have been operating at the staff level that this is a phase 2 project. I do know that there's been a lot of discussion here at the policy level of you all giving us direction on that, and I know
both of those issues have been raised, the safety concerns and then also the cost. I will also share with you that we have looked at, actually this afternoon, kind of what the trade-offs would be in terms of putting that in, just purely without looking at other policy concerns, but just on the dollars, and then also just on the logistical side of things with the bike path. And I know that Maurice and Cindy met with Turner this afternoon, and I don't know, Maurice, if you want to talk a little bit about what that might mean if we were to go ahead and try to put the bike path in there. I do know that there are implications on the possible timing of opening up the pool, and then on the cost estimate, we had put a figure that came from Turner originally last summer of $725,000. That's a very fuzzy number at this point, so you can address.
I think you've hit the main point. In particular, the cost estimate is very rough. So we don't know if it's going to be more or less than that large number. And secondly, to put it in, we would want to have the design prepared and then built as part of the project. And to do so would impact the schedule of opening up the swimming pool, which we want open next summer. So if we decide we want to do that and fund it, it would delay the opening of the pool.
Yeah, and that's a real concern to me too, because I think how important that is to the community. So what I'm hearing is that to proceed with this path at some point, not only having the council feel confident about moving forward with that, but number one, having plans in place which have not been drawn up to put in the path. Number two, having the money to do so, and we don't know the actual cost right now. And number three, having the pool impacted and the pool use. And so so the bike ped path is right now listed in our CIP funds, although it's not funded. We don't have funds designated for it. And it's also listed in something else we're considering later this year, which is our transportation impact fees, as I understand it. And those transportation impact fees are to be collected from new development projects. And there's a huge list of projects that can be funded by or paid for by those funds. And of course, we don't know exactly when those funds come in. It depends on the schedules of those projects. But considering that we have things listed in our SIP plan that are also listed in our transportation impact fee plan, there may be the possibility of funds being available for some of those projects that are currently unfunded because of the nature of that. So my request is to ask council if you would consider prioritizing the bike ped path to be funded from city funds, whether it's transportation impact fees going forward or whether it's CIP funds, and work around the pool closure and schedule. Our pool is not open 12 months a year, as you know, and consider funding the bike ped path at some point before phase 2 of the project. I really do feel that phase 2 is something so far out in the future that it's not very meaningful right now. So I would love to ask the council for that kind of support and direct staff to prioritize that and see that we can make it happen before phase 2.
Jennifer, can we come back to this issue when we address the CIP on the
Sure.
Regular council agenda, just so that it's tied directly?
Yeah, that's fine.
To that
I just
item?
wanted to further explain my position.
Sure,
as,
sure.
Councilmember
Yeah,
Brickman.
I understand that, right.
Asher, those comments are not germane to this successor agency action, and I would request that we call the question on the motion on the resolution.
I have one quick comment. I just want to say that I'm going to be voting for this resolution this evening, and it's in no way to telegraph what my vote is about this project or this process in the future. Instead, what's very important to me right now is that the $20 million that is with the successor agency be moved over to the city coffers. However that's going to be spent, I think it should be with the city and no longer with the successor agency, and I don't think we should wait. And for me, that's what this vote is about right now. So with that, I'll call the question. Could you take roll call, please? Yeah.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second already.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Davis and Brinkman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Brinkman,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember West,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin,
Aye.
and Mayor Asher.
Aye. Okay. Right.
Mayor Asher, moving on to the city council action, I'd move the resolution of the city manager as agent for the hazard mitigation grant.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Okay with that?
It's 8.
That's 8.33, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then we don't need to do 8.34 because we just did it with the successor agent. We have to do it
Separate
again?
vote.
For this
Yeah,
legal
for
entity.
both?
I understood the motion just to be on the successor agency resolution.
Okay, so we'll do it again. Okay. Do I have a motion on 8.34?
I move 8.34.
Second?
Excuse me, I'm a little lost.
We're on the city council agenda, 8.3.4.
Right, but I thought you just passed 8.3.3.
We did?
Yeah.
We did,
Now
yes.
8.3.4.
Okay.
Nora's moved the item.
And motion second?
Yes, Davis and Atkin.
Anyone opposed?
No.
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 Okay. Okay,
So now we
Mr.
go-
Biddle, now I'm
Now
back.
we go back to the successor agency.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now status report on the Oversight Board legal expenditures. What number are we on? 5.1 on the blue agenda. We have multiple things open right now. Any questions on 5.1 from council? No. I have to get back to it too.
There's no action, it's just
No.
information. so-
And so moving on to item 6, information and status report from the chair of the Oversight Board. The next meeting of the Oversight Board will be on June 10th, just to let the public know. Okay. And with that, the successor agency meeting is adjourned. Okay. We're now back to the green agenda. This is our regular city council meeting. We don't have any special orders of the day. Public comment. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon Wilshire, coordinator for the annual Emeryville Art Exhibition. So this is the last time you're going to have to hear this from me because the deadline is this Friday. So www.emeryarts.org. The application is online, and this is open to anyone who lives or works in Emeryville, visual artists, performing artists, just any medium. So we're excited about, there's some new names that have come in. I never know what the jury's going to select, but I'm looking forward to it. The other thing is, I just wanted to mention that tomorrow evening, June the 4th, the Emeryville Secondary School Spring Music and Music Performance and Art Exhibition at Cliff Bar Gallery, which is at 1451 66th Street from 5:30 to 7:30, and it's open to the public, and it'll be a wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Go ahead, come forward, yeah. Hi, Ken.
Hello, Ken Bukowski. At the last city council meeting, I noticed at the end of the meeting you had a discussion about city manager performance review, and I'd like to suggest that you set a retreat where you could outline the goals for the community for the coming year, and then maybe discuss it at that meeting. This way the public can be involved and we can all know what we're doing going forward. And so I'd like to suggest that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Anyone else for public comment this evening?
I do have an item I'm going to pull this evening from the consent calendar. I don't know if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Jean Robertson, and the public comment I would like to make is that the area that we worked on for many years to make a public greenway in a linear park has been, I think, a roaring success in the fact that it is used by a lot of people And so I just wanted to underscore the earlier discussion about bike ped paths. Sometimes, it's so important to get the infrastructure in place because even if you have to start by a few blocks at a time, we got to start somewhere. And I can see that the infrastructure that we put in place for bicycles to be able to go up and down the Greenway, I mean, people go to the Berkeley Bowl for errands, people commute, that was the most busiest bike station on Bike to Work Day. There was over 300 people passing through there. So anyway, just a vote to stay with that vision, even those of you who don't bike, we got to keep those bike paths in place, especially around a school where kids are biking to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment this evening?
Yeah, I have some comments tonight directed to the council member who just accused one of his colleagues of engaging in blackmail. That would be Mr. Kurt Brinkman, Councilmember Kurt Brinkman. Mr. Brinkman recently was interviewed by a blog in Emeryville called The Evil Eye. And in this blog, he said, first off, he said a lot of things, but not the least of which is that people that disagree with him are engaging what he's calling verbal diarrhea. So get ready, Kurt. There's going to be a big load of it right here, some diarrhea.
I would expect no less from you.
Okay. Now, Mr. Brinkman took issue with a story that I did in my blog called the Emeryville Tattler. And in this story, I talked about how the Avalon building, built in 2000, was made at the expense of the First National Bank, which is a beautiful Beaux-Arts building on San Pablo Avenue. And the story is about how the people of Emeryville were the losers in that, because it's a beautiful old building. Then Mr. Brinkman told the Evil Eye that that was untrue, that what I had reported something is untrue about him. And he said that he doesn't believe in tearing down old buildings, and he hasn't voted to tear down old buildings in Emeryville since he's been on the council. He has not voted to tear down old buildings, is what Mr. Brinkman told the Evil Eye, and anybody can hear it by going to the Evil Eye and listening to the interview. Now, to deviate for a moment, my mother always used to tell me, don't call people liars because it's too provocative, she said. But however, this is when I was a child, she used to tell me this. But she said that you can always make an exception for politicians. Those people you can call liars, and it's fine. So, Mr. Brinkman, when you told the Evil Eye that you have not voted to tear down old buildings in Emeryville, that was a lie. It was an outright lie, an outright fabrication. 3900 Adeline Street, you voted to tear that building down. More recently, the Golden Gate Lock and Key in 1912, really handsome brick load-bearing structure on San Pablo Avenue. You voted to tear that down. So you have a record of being part of the crew here on the council that has torn down old buildings and replaced them with new buildings. So to say that you haven't done it outright like that is complete fabrication, and I don't think it's becoming of a Emeryville City Council member to engage in that kind of outright deception. I just don't think it's not becoming. I don't think you should be doing that.
Oh, okay.
Yes. He's shaking his head now incredulously.
Time's up.
I don't
Thank
think
you.
you should be doing that. I don't think you should be engaging in that. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? No? Okay, let's move on to the city manager's report. Sabrina?
Just really briefly, our polls are open downstairs for anybody watching at home for 6 more minutes. So if anybody wants to run on down, we are hosting a polling place down at City Hall. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Move the consent calendar.
Could I pull item 5.8? This is the new image landscape contract.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull 5.9.
Okay.
I'll second the rest.
Okay. Anyone opposed to moving the rest of it? No? Okay. Item 5.8, Jennifer.
Great. So as you know, I'm a member of the Emeryville Community Organic Garden, and there are a crew of folks there who work very hard working with the city and with our landscape contractor to maintain, there's a little portion of our linear park that runs right behind the organic garden there. And so when we have work days, we often spend hours of our time working on that patch, but there's also certain portions that New Image Landscape takes care of. And so when our contract came this time, I noticed how detailed it was. It's very detailed about, techniques for mulching this and the way to prune that and don't take away all the leaves. And I really want to applaud the city for addressing some critical, I think, and smart management techniques for landscape. But I don't know a lot about it. I'm not a landscape designer or maintenance person myself. And so I asked some folks who are involved in our garden to look at the contract and give some feedback. And I shared that with staff ahead of time. And I just would like staff to comment and then maybe also hear from some folks who maybe it's not so much about the contract that needs to be changed, but just about our process and the accountability and the checking in and the interface between our city staff and our contractor.
Okay. Maurice, just want to...
Sure. If I could just respond that, we've been working with New Image Landscaping for a number of years now, and at the end of 2012, fiscal year 2011-12, we decided it would be a good idea to go out for RFP, and we needed to change those specifications and really tighten them up. And we worked with the Bay Friendly Coalition to get a template specification, and then we refined really what the routine work would be to better define the monthly work that they're going to do. Actually, it's most of the sites are visited on once a week, but so we better define that, and we better define what the extra work was, because the previous contract, it wasn't clear as to whether or not when the plants died, whether or not it was included to replace the plants. So we could have been arguing for days on as to what was really included. So we cleaned it up and we put it out to bid, and at that time we received 5 proposals, and New Image was the lowest responsible but qualified bidder of the bunch. The next bidder up was about $20,000 more. So we awarded the contract, so the conditions have changed, the requirements have changed, and so this was the first year of that contract, and we've noticed a difference in the work. They're visiting all the sites more regularly. We see that there's good weeding going on, generally speaking. You can always find some weeds that are still left, but in general, the city looks really good. And I will say that there's a new manager on board with that company, and he's very responsive. But I will say that we've had a change in personnel in our Public Works Department. Typically, over the years, we've been working with ECOG to make sure that we coordinate what's done around the community garden. And there was a side agreement between the Public Works crew and ECOG as to who's doing what around the community garden. With the leaving of our staff people, plus change in personnel at New Images, there's been a lack of communication with ECOG. So we're on top of it right now. We've got a meeting set up so that we can make sure their concerns are heard, and to kind of define what it is that they want to do around the community garden. So with that.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on this item? Yeah. Thanks, Maurice.
Jean Robertson, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think it's great that you have adopted the Bay Friendly standards, that there are standards and you can adopt them and put that into the contract. So that's wonderful. I would be so thrilled to see those those parameters actually employed by New Image. As far as I can tell, they do a good job at cutting the grass. I mean, these standards say that they should be monitoring the irrigation monthly, weekly, and there's problems on the Greenway that I know about personally, and I haven't inspected every one of these sites that is in this contract, but I know some of the sites, and we have problems going back over a year. In fact, the last time there was a series of repairs was after we poked and poked and prodded, and finally at the end of summer, after the growing season was over, finally some irrigation things got fixed, and that was in 2012. We're in spring 2014, and the irrigation is just dumping water when it comes on, if it comes on. I think they just finally turned it on, and there's giant pools, and you know, the pathways are eroded because the irrigation is broken and just shooting here and there. So basically, our biggest problem is they don't do much hand weeding. They don't have much savvy with pruning, so boxes and balls. Sometimes they prune things well, but a lot of times they don't. And they don't keep up with weeding. And so under their watch, what started out as a brand new landscape has become seriously degraded with noxious weeds that it's just like get worse every year. And we're out there a lot. You know, I personally pay my own landscape guys to work back there because it's hard to keep up. And the Emeryville Garden, we volunteer all kinds of time. But the city guys, the city contractors, are not doing enough hand weeding, and under their watch, it just gets worse and worse. So some areas are good, and some areas they take care of, and some areas look okay. In other areas, they just kind of mow and blow, and they get more degraded. So one other thing I want to point out is that I think it's a worthy dialogue to ask the question, how do we take care of public spaces that get high traffic, and how do we take care of public spaces that get super high traffic? It's a fair question. You know, it's not the landscaper's fault that 500 people are pooping and peeing their dogs on the greenway every day, you know, or every week. So it's a fair question. And I would love for us to problem solve with the city and New Image to up their standard, because they've been doing a slipshod job, at least as far as irrigation is concerned. That's just one item, and that's been egregious. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item?
Sam Fouchi, and I'm the president of Emeryville Community Organic Gardens, the nonprofit that runs the Doyle Street Garden and Big Daddy's Garden, and a new garden that's coming very soon to 48th Street. I just want to say a couple words about this side agreement that Maurice referred to. So actually, it dates back a little bit further than that. When the Greenway was done and completed back in '04, I believe it was, '04, '05, and we opened the new Emeryville Community Garden at that time. In the process of planning the Greenway, we had some input, several of us from the garden, in what went in there, and some changes were made from the original design because of our input. And then after the garden and the Greenway were open, we agreed informally at the time that we would be involved in helping to maintain the area around the garden. We actually took responsibility for the parking strip, which is right next to the garden on Doyle Street, even though it's not part of the garden and technically is part of the city's, part of their city area that the city is responsible for. But we agreed to just be responsible for that, and I feel have done an excellent job in keeping it looking good and being an asset to the whole area. And we also agreed to help to maintain the plantings next to the fence on both Doyle and 59th Street, right next to the garden, because it just made sense for us to do that work so that it coordinated what we were doing inside the garden. So I say that by way of to establish a context for what eventually happened, which was in 2010, we actually sat down with Mike Mahoney, the supervisor of public works at that time, and the field supervisor, and two people from New Image and myself. We sat down and we went over all the things for the Greenway part of it, which is on the west side of the garden, that we would like to see better taken care of. And so we came up with a side agreement, as Maurice called it, and it was quite detailed. And there have been times in the past 4 years where some or maybe even most of the things on it were addressed, and then there's been a lot of times, as Gene referred to, that where things have just fallen by the wayside. And we understand that there are a lot of reasons for that, and we just want to see it kind of, we'd like to see it fixed. So I'm very encouraged with the willingness of the new field supervisor for the Public Works, Rich Cunningham, and the new regional supervisor for New Image, being very anxious to sit down with us and see if we can hash out all the issues so that it all works for all of us. And so the burden doesn't fall on, I just feel like the burden has fell unduly on the garden members who've been willing to work. We've put in a lot of time and energy, but we just can't keep up. We can't do it all ourselves, and so I'm looking forward to working that out.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And Maurice, have these concerns already been communicated to the landscapers, or?
Oh, yes, and so we're trying to set up the meeting right now, so that we can maybe redo this side agreement so we know who's doing what.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
I would like the mayor to be a little more diligent on making people adhere to the timeline.
I think that's a great idea.
In a fair way and equitable. In other words, if you do it to some people, you got to do it to everybody. Thank you.
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
I just would like to make sure that the conversations with New Image aren't just about the area right around ECOG, but that all the standards that we expect of them are uniformly.
We're going to go over all the obligations of the specifications with them, remind them of all their requirements.
Thank you.
And then we'll monitor.
Okay.
Thanks so much, and thanks for your comments this evening.
Okay, Kurt,
Hey, 5.9. Hey, Maurice, when we replaced all their lamps with LEDs, I was surprised to see the price of the maintenance kind of where it was when we had incandescent bulbs and lights. It's you have a contract here for routine maintenance of street lights for $54,000.
The cost per head actually went down for all the LED lights, but we still have a lot of other lights that are not LEDs.
You do?
Yeah.
What
Yes.
percentage?
There's, in the CIP, I have a quantity in here is how many we're going to convert to LED still. All the ornamental lights out,
Okay.
all the green ones.
So but I still thought we would see some.
The other thing is that on the maintenance contract, we added the lighting underneath the freeway because we didn't have a contract to maintain the art lighting or the lighting under the soffit of the bridge, where we just recently agreed to maintain with that Caltrans maintenance agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I'd move 5.9.
I'll second it.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, item 6.1.
So this is a public hearing to provide the public an opportunity. It's the first of two required public hearings. Public hearing to give the public an opportunity to provide comment on first the notion of the proposal of a charter for the city, and then also the content of the proposed charter, which would then be placed potentially on the ballot in November 4th, 2014. The government code prescribes the process for the council to propose placing a charter before the voters. Prior to approving the submission of a charter to the voters, the council must hold at least 2 public hearings on the matter of the proposed charter as well as the content. And the second public hearing has to be held no earlier than 30 days after the first public hearing. Thereafter, the council may not vote or may not conduct a vote, rather, on whether to approve the submission of the matter to the voters until at least 21 days have elapsed after the second public hearing. So as I noted, this is the first of 2 public hearings. The second public hearing was previously scheduled for July 8th, 2014. However, due to some scheduling conflicts for members of the council, we are having to cancel that July 8th meeting and having the second public hearing on your regular meeting of July 15th, 2014. So the notice of rescheduling of that meeting was posted today, and it's also going to be published in the newspaper shortly. After the second public hearing of July 15th, as I noted, the council may not vote on whether to approve the submission of the matter to the voters for at least 21 days. So the matter will be brought before the council at a special meeting on Wednesday, August 6th, to consider whether to submit the matter to the voters for November 4th. In your packet were two versions of the proposed charter. The most recent one was enclosed as attachment 1. It appears at pages 291 and 292. It is 2 pages. It is the charter that your staff is recommending that you move forward on. The content of it is, we believe, consistent with the direction of the council. Section 200 makes it clear that the charter powers of the city are constrained such that the council and the city would only have the powers with respect to municipal affairs in relation to taxation and assessment. Likewise, Section 201 makes it clear that other than those powers related to taxation, the powers of the city would otherwise be constrained by, subject to, and governed by the general laws of the state. There are other provisions in the proposed charter, notably Section 400, which again makes it clear that the form of government of the city will continue to be the council manager form of government, consisting of 5 council members elected at large for 4-year staggered terms, and that the council establishes the policy and the city manager carries out that policy. We are recommending this version in lieu of what is noted as version 1, which was presented to the council at their meeting of April 22nd. So at this time, staff's recommending that you open up the public hearing and listen to any public comment. And then again, as I noted, we would have the second public hearing on July 15th and then bring the proposed legislation to put it on the ballot for November 4th at a special meeting on August 6th.
Thank you. Okay, the
Mayor
public hearing
Asher,
is open.
It's clear that the council will take no action tonight.
Correct. This is just an opportunity for members of the public to let you know what they think about the concept of a charter as well as the content.
Members of the public, anyone want to speak?
Much better. Sounds great.
Okay.
Uh-oh, it's for you, Ken.
I generally support the idea of a charter, but I'm not sure if I understand the approach. I mean, suppose you want to consider having a public bank. Would somebody have to create a ballot measure, and would that be under the charter? Or, I don't know if you can just say you're a charter city just for the purpose of collecting a tax. I mean, I've supported the real estate transfer tax, so that's not the problem there, but I don't know what it means as far as what the rights of the people are to make changes and so on. I think that really needs to be explained. I would want to look into that. How does it impact? I'm not really sure what it means. So if we could do a detailed presentation of that not before you take this action, but before the election, would be great. Thanks.
Well, I agree with what Scott Donahue just said. I think it's great. Finally, here we have it. I'm all in favor of this. I think that the people of Emeryville should be allowed to decide for themselves what form of government we want to have. And insofar that there's been a problem up to now, I can't wrap my mind around that. I mean, just the idea that the people shouldn't be allowed to decide for themselves is kind of creepy to me. So here it is. It's very few words. It's 2 pages, 2 short pages, front and back, and it's taken like getting teeth pulled, getting the city attorney to deliver this to us. As you all know, and maybe people watching TV don't know, we had to go through many iterations to get to this, and the people of Emeryville, we pay for our city manager, and so we deserve to have good. I'm sorry, not manager. I meant to say attorney. We deserve to have good services for our money, and we were told this was impossible by the city attorney, and now yet here it is from the city attorney. But so for months this obfuscation from the city attorney, and I want to reiterate, we deserve to have good employees working for us. And so there's no explanation about how before you said Mr. Biddle said this was not possible, and yet here it is. And so I'm kind of curious. I mean, since I'm paying for it, I want to know why was it so difficult to get this here now? I mean, since I paid for it, I paid for many iterations, and now finally we have this little short 2-page thing that you were told 3 times to deliver, and it's just sort of, I'm sort of a little disconcerted about the amount of money spent to get to this point. Anything you could say to that effect would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Anyone want to be heard on this item? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. No action taken on that this evening. We're moving on to then item 8.1, and I do have a speaker card for that up here. With the charter.
Yes. Yes. I knew what you were saying.
Okay. All right.
At the end.
Oh, what's wrong?
Questions?
There we go. I'm all
That's all we
done.
Easy enough.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. So tonight we are here to present formally your 5-year CIP. We have been before you. We started back in November talking about your priorities, and I will get to that in a minute. And we brought it to all of the advisory committees, including the Planning Commission. And here we are asking for adoption of both the 5-year plan and also 2 years of specific appropriations. So just to review, this council adopts a 5-year CIP, supposed to adopt a 5-year CIP every other year. The CIP identifies the equipment, infrastructure, capital needs of the city, and identifies funding sources and establishes preliminary project timelines. The last time you all approved a CIP was back in December of 2006. That covered fiscal year 2005-06 through 2010-11. The total estimated cost back then was $380 million. Only $209 was funded. As you'll see in the next slide, the majority of this was funded through the redevelopment agency. And the annual amount that was funded in each fiscal year was between $12 to about $50 million. Here is what that plan looked like. The majority, 69%, as you can see there, was funded through the former redevelopment agency. This just shows you in each of those, I guess this looks like 6 years, fiscal years, what our capital outlay expenses, how they were broken out between the city and the RDA. For those of you at home, the red is the city, the small portion, the large bar is former redevelopment agency. So what has changed? The council reviewed a draft CIP. Staff had brought something forward back in January of 2011. As we all know, things changed pretty dramatically right after that. Further action was put on hold due to the changes in redevelopment. and subsequently dissolution officially occurred as of February 1st of 2012. Staff went back and needed to think through what some new funding mechanisms may be to go forward and carry out some of these capital needs. We came forward last November and discussed your priorities and went back and looked at what the possible projects might be. Just to summarize what you all directed us to prioritize, we were told to look at public safety, affordable housing, the preventative maintenance, or as we termed it, fix it first, parks and open space. You all directed us to look at projects that would help create well-planned and family-friendly communities, to leverage our outside funding, improve community mobility and interconnectivity, to balance residential and business community needs, to encourage environmental sustainability through our climate action plan, and eliminate hazards. We also looked at projects that were of citywide impact. This pie chart just shows you the breakdown of all of the funding sources that we are proposing as part of this 5-year plan. You can see there grants make up a large portion of it. Some of our internal service funds, such as IT and vehicle replacement, public art, affordable housing, and general capital are both primarily funded now out of the residual or boomerang funds that are coming back through the dissolution of redevelopment. And then major maintenance is also an internal service fund. So getting to our 5-year plan, we have a total of $96 million worth of projects in the proposal. You can see there the breakdown by the different categories of what is funded and what remains unfunded in the 5-year plan. And we can get to some of those specifics. Again, this shows you the breakdown. We actually peeled out a couple of the larger projects just to show you out of community facilities what those look like, and so you can see the large green piece for the ECCL, and then also the South Bayfront Bridge and Park. It makes up a pretty big chunk. So you have in your packet detailed project information, a separate sheet for each proposed project. Within those, we went through and had marked a project if it was mandated or required by federal, state, or local law. If it was restricted funding, we definitely, again, looked at the preventative maintenance or the fix it first. Made a note if it was leveraging outside funds, such as grant or private funds. Also, projects were categorized by whether or not they eliminated hazards. You will see projects in there that are listed as a continuation of an existing project. Some projects were considered quote-unquote discretionary. And then also in the project sheets, we have details on timing and source of all of the funds. So just getting to the first 2 years of the proposal, we are requesting an appropriation for the first fiscal year of approximately $43 million, and that encompasses about 51 projects, at least either wholly or partially funds 51 projects. In the second year, we're looking at about $18 million for a total of 40 projects. And I can get to kind of some of the larger projects that we are proposing. As you all are well aware, the ECCL takes up $21.8 million of the $96 million. The South Bayfront Bridge and Horton Landing Park is approximately $16 million. As you also are well aware, that project continues to be in the hands of the state and the appeal process. The Senior Center rehab, we are requesting $1.9 million for the Senior Center. About 1.4 to continue on with the Peninsula Fire Station rehab. About 6.3 million for the Corporation Yard and EOC. We are in the process right now of looking at the possible alternative of putting the EOC in the Hollis Street Fire Station. We are looking at, actually meeting on Friday with the architect and with Alameda County Fire, and looking at, there's an existing space there and whether or not we could bring this amount down. We think there could be some savings there, and so that would come forward to you later, but we're at least requesting the appropriation for this now. About $2.4 million for the annual street rehab program, another $1.7 for the sidewalk improvement program, and the sewers, $2.5 million to continue that. As I mentioned before, we went to, over the course of, I think it was January, February, March, and a little bit into April, we went to the different advisory committees. Overall, the committees agreed with the stated city priorities that you all had. They appreciated the opportunity to weigh in on the overall plan, as well as the specific projects that were within their scope of responsibility. There was some comment about the way that we had categorized some of the projects, that there was some overlap, and also requested that we include more subcategories. There was also a request kind of across the board for additional information on project scheduling, and some of the committees brought forward new program or service needs, as well as individual project requests. Getting into some of the specific comments, I don't know if we want to run through all of these, but we have the Housing Committee in general agreed with the recommendations we made on the affordable housing projects. They did make a request that the Adeline parcels be offered to 3706 to the project developers. For uses restricted to the site-only community garden. Recreational use or city should sell for affordable housing funding, so city and city staff agreed with that. Park Avenue District really agreed with what we had there, but they felt that the traffic signal at 40th and Harlan and the bike lane and route stenciling, if we needed to cut something out, they considered those lower priority. And then they also requested that the district banners be included as part of the public art master plan. This is going to get small for me. Aging, they agreed that the senior center renovation should be high priority, no surprise. Child Development Center agreed that the center renovation should be top priority. The Public Art Committee felt that the master plan funding should be separated out from the plan implementation funding, which we did, and they requested that we fund the public art master plan in the first fiscal year. And then they felt that all of staff's public arts recommendations were the highest priority. Parks and Rec agreed with what we had for parks. Also felt that Senior Center, Child Development Center renovations, as well as the Halleck Beach Dog Park were high priorities. I will note that the Halleck Beach Dog Park is an unfunded project in the proposal. They also agreed with the recommendation that the Housing Committee made on the 36th Street property. They did make a recommendation to reduce the funding for the Pellado Park and Greenway Design Project and to use that savings to fund the Halleck Beach Dog Park if necessary. Bike Ped requested that we add $500,000 in the unfunded category for future years for the Horton Street experimental traffic calming project. And that's to construct the permanent measures. As you all can recall, we have received a grant to design the experimental, the temporary measures. But this would be a placeholder in case the developer is not going to fund the permanent measures. They also recommended a new project, which is traffic calming at 65th, 66th, and 67th. We have added that into our list of funded projects. The Marina Committee supported our projects on the for the Marina. Public Works continue to reaffirm the priority to maintain existing infrastructure first. And then on the Transportation Committee, definitely reiterated the high priority of the South Bayfront Bridge, and then also recommended the traffic calming project. Okay, economic development, they recommended that the bus yard, which was previously estimated at about $1 million, and it was in the unfunded category, that become a higher priority. Staff has actually moved that, half of that, into the funded category.
in the out years. They also recommended some other projects such as Emory Connect website redesign, mapping, conduit matching grant program, the Small Business Assistance Program, and consideration of long-term financing for large projects. We have not included any of those in our proposal here. Those are all items that will continue to be discussed as we go through our economic development strategy. We didn't consider those capital improvement projects per se. Within the Finance Committee, their highest priorities were family-friendly, affordable housing, Emory Go-Round, the bridge, senior center, the community garden. There's the Halleck Beach Dog Park again. The quiet railroad zones, I will, for the benefit of the public, note that is, I think, our highest, our largest unfunded project within the proposal. And they also placed a high priority on storm drains. Okay. So that is the overview of the proposal. It's a very large packet. Maurice is here if there are specific questions on any of the individual projects. But if you have questions on the overview, I'm happy to take those now.
Could we hear from the public?
Mayor, can I just interject?
Sure.
We have a request to move a red Hyundai, license number 4DNB466. If anybody is the owner of that car, it's blocking some access for the registrar of voters.
Is that your car?
It's a red Hyundai.
All right. Okay.
Gotcha.
He's paying attention in there. He's watching us.
Oh, are you in the back?
Yeah. It's the registrar. It must be the registrar. Yeah.
I parked in an open space.
Okay.
Sharon Wilshire, Chair of the Public Art Committee. I just wanted to mention that I was looking through my calendar to see the date, but after the Saturday community workshop on the CIP, at the very next Public Art Committee meeting, the Public Art Committee asked that the Center for the Arts be added to things that they thought should be a priority. And the reason they sort of felt it had been sort of a given that they didn't need to say anything, but after that meeting, so that would have been at our March 13th meeting, that was, and we had understood from staff that that would be included as an addition, so I'm just mentioning that.
My apology if that was
Public art. Anyone else from the public?
They, as part of their recommendations, that get moved up, the arts.
The proposed future public art building and community center just south of us here is languishing. It's sitting there empty. If we could have a little study money for this, maybe there is some use, some cultural use that could be had by this piece of property. Sometimes art can make surprising contributions in places not normally thought of as nice public space. And it's just a way that we could move forward with this facility, perhaps in a more immediate way, that we could get some use out of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff. For those of you who don't know me or don't recognize me, I'm John Flores, former city manager and president of the Emeryville Center for the Arts. I'm here with Sharon Wilshire, the vice president of the Center for the Arts, and speaking specifically on what Mr. Donahue was talking about. First of all, I want to thank you for, in these lean times, to even have funding for that project. The unfortunate part is that it's funded in the year 17-18, and we are here to request that you move that up to the more current year. For the following reasons, I'll give you some, hopefully some convincing arguments. First of all, I think the art community has been a great benefit to the city. And I think you all agree with that. Back in the 60s, 70s, when 40% of the land in the city was vacant, artists came here because it was cheap and they had good housing. And the city sponsored them, actually, in helping them purchase co-housing, the property. And a variety of other things occurred where the city has sponsored the arts, public arts, Percent for Arts. And so it is something that I think is recognized as doing good for the community. And brings in, at least for the celebration of the arts, people from the outside that don't even know where Emeryville is. Second point is that taking you back to 1996, when the city was celebrating its 100th year anniversary, we had a parade in this town. I'm not sure if you had one since. Great parade. Started right here at City Hall, a city hall that had been sold and bought back again by the city. It was an unreinforced masonry building, was falling down, couldn't live in it. And soon after that parade, the city council met and said, we're going to renovate the city hall and add whatever is necessary for administrative offices and really have a civic center block. A part of that block was to be for an arts facility of some sort. Didn't have any idea what it was at that time. But as you all know, when the opportunity came up, the city, purchased 4060 Hollis Street, the former United Stamping Company. Well, for the last, subsequent to that, there was a couple of years of the community getting together at lots of meetings of what to do with that building, Scott. And they decided that it should be an art center, Center for the Arts. At the time, redevelopment monies was available. There was some grandiose ideas. It was a multidisciplinary use that we wanted to have. Fantastic design. We were moving forward great guns, and then 2011 came, and the state eliminated redevelopment funding. So for the last 3 years...
Mr. Flores, your time is up.
And I take someone else's time.
You could have someone else speak.
Okay.
If you would like.
That was much faster than I can.
3
Well, thank
minutes
you
just
for
flew
your
by.
time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Big slow down in retirement time.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilor. Many residents of Emeryville, as well as residents of surrounding cities and towns, and those visiting from the outside, have no idea where Emeryville begins and Berkeley or Oakland end. Because of its small size and the lack of any natural or man-made delineators, Emeryville exists in many people's minds as sort of an undefined abstraction. And all the hard work that we do to make this city great would be much more visible and cohesive if it occurred within recognized parameters. The general plan the process of the general plan brought up a lot of emphasis on gateways and identity. And the benefits, I think we would benefit greatly through gateways and monuments at some of our primary entrances, including San Pablo near 36th Street.
That happens
It's
to
that
everybody.
mouse. Oh, it's that thing. There we go.
We're
Don't
working
touch
on
the
it.
pad. Or Hollis near 67th. Powell near the railroad tracks. Or Powell near Baldry. Many cities with identity crises far greater than anything that we grapple with have found a way through the use of gateways and monuments.
Something we should do with the water tower.
I don't know if any of you have seen House of Cards, that shows up in there, but they've used these monuments and gateways to encapsulate their visions and strengthen their pride and let people know that they're somewhere significant. Gateway signs at major corridors can create a bold statement and inspire appropriate development and increase property values. And they can honor history, or they can establish a vision of the future. There's a water tower on Powell, and it's my understanding that the current owners of the water tower might not be against its use, its artistic use, if it doesn't come out of their pockets. And with as little as a few buckets of paint, we could make that water tower into a great symbol of our city. Creative monument signs at narrower corridors have been used in many places and could be used on places such as North Hollis, where it would still stand out with the slower traffic and less distractions. I'd like to request an amendment to the CIP with an allocation of $3.5 million for gateways and monuments at locations to be coordinated by the staff with input from the public, Planning Commission, and the City Council, and the designs to be selected through competition orchestrated by the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Gunkel. Further comments from the public?
Let's see. I have a couple of things I want to speak on. So, the first one is Sharon Wilshire as the coordinator for the annual art exhibition, and I'm just gonna. I'll try and be as quick as I can with this, but. To foster an appreciation of the arts and artists of Emeryville and to promote our city's image as a culturally vital and progressive center for living and working. This is the mission of the Emeryville Celebration of the Arts. To produce and coordinate community-based events and programs to meet its primary goals to enhance the quality of life in Emeryville, recognize the arts as a major cultural and economic resource, to increase citizen involvement in the arts through an active partnership of our business, residential, and arts community, and to increase public awareness of the rich diversity of all forms of creative expression in Emeryville. These are our guidelines with each exhibition, and I know that we produced an event of high quality for 27 years. This has grown with the times and with technology. Improved each year, remains the envy of our neighboring cities and arts communities, an event anticipated each fall by our residents, a showcase for Emeryville's creativity. There are certain fundamentals as an arts presenter: exhibition infrastructure and presentation, quality graphics, printing, and on. The sorts of things that cannot all be addressed in a virtual arena but are tangibles, and the costs for these have increased over the years. So our board is hoping that you will amend the budget before you tonight to increase our funding as in our request. This will be for the first time in 16 years. Our operating committee is a frugal, thoughtful group with arts and community as their focus, and these funds, as always, will be used prudently to maintain and enhance the annual celebration of the arts. I never know what the jury will select from our entry artists, as I mentioned before, but this year, for the first time in many years, we may have a dance component, and we're also looking forward to collaborating with the city's poet laureate with a special event at the exhibition. So these are just a few of the things that you might see new this year, and we hope that you'll consider our request. I was going to speak as the vice president of the board for the Center for the Arts on really sort of the spirit of the center. And I mean, in the city's mission statement that provides innovative and responsive services to the community to create and sustain a vibrant, livable city. Even in the Chamber of Commerce Healthy City Initiative, where they have 7 points with educational health and environmental stewardship, artistic and cultural health is also one of these elements. So to me, this is a key element of a livable city and a basic component of quality of life. Just really ask you to consider, you know, it's been unclear with things being out at year 5. Is that when planning begins? Is that when there's actually a... Okay.
Thank you, Sharon.
It's unfortunate. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Goldman. Speaking
You can
about,
lower that.
Oh, thank you. For short people, thank you so much. I'm here to talk about the Center for the Arts also. I'm president of the Celebration of the Arts Advisory Council, and I just want to reiterate what John Flores has said and in the letter that he sent to the council. So we're requesting that you revise the capital improvement plan to advance the appropriation of $3.9 million for the Emeryville Arts Center to 2014, 2015, so we can move that up and begin moving on that. We're afraid if it goes out too long to 2017, 18, that the funds that are available with the rising costs and so on, we won't be able to renovate the building. And we think after 27 years of searching for a building every year, that it's time for a permanent home for the celebration of the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Anyone else from the public?
I just wanted to note here, remind everybody about how the transit center has received capital improvement monies, some $8.4 million. And it's got a $4.2 million state grant, and then the rest of it is a tax increment funding from the city, which is totally inappropriate. This is a project that our own planning commission deemed is not sufficiently high in public benefit to even allow happen, let alone fund with our own tax increment financing. So I think that was really, really inappropriate. I understand Mr. Rich Robbins, the CEO of Wareham Development, the beneficiary of this money, is friendly with a lot of council members, but I just think it's really bad policy, bad public policy, and I don't think we should be spending our money on things that have so little public benefit. I agree with our planning commission that that just doesn't have enough public benefit. Now I wanted to speak for the Horton here tonight for the Horton Street Bike Boulevard. We're still waiting for a bike boulevard on Horton Street. As it is right now, Horton Street is not a bike boulevard. It's a regular street with purple signs and some stenciling. And how do I know that it's not a bike boulevard? Well, I know because the city of Emeryville tells me it's not a bike boulevard. For it to be one, it would have to have less than 3,000 vehicle trips per day. And it's got way more than that, anywhere from, last traffic count, anywhere from about 4,200 up to over 12,000 vehicle trips per day in some areas. So we asked, the Bike Ped Committee asked for some money from the Capital Improvement Fund so that we can be sure to have traffic calming as the bicycle pedestrian plan that you all voted on, have that be implemented. And so we've been waiting for almost 10 years to get a bike boulevard on Horton Street, and it's the premier north-south travel route for bicyclists, and we don't have a bike boulevard there now, and we won't have one unless we do traffic calming to bring down the volume to less than 3,000. And so I just think it's really important to have one north-south bicycle boulevard in Emeryville. I think we should make sure that money is set aside for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Asher and council members. Bob Cantor. I'm President and CEO of the Emeryville Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to finish John Flores' statement for him, but I just want to reiterate that we were very big fans of the Arts Center here. I personally attended lots of the meetings. There were a lot of public meetings with the schematics. They were wonderful. It was a very exciting project. And we stated publicly that what better symbol could there be for the transformation of the city from the old industrial city to a new modern city taking a new path than to take an old industrial property and transform it into an arts center. You couldn't be a better use for that. I would also note, I don't know the structure of every city in California, and won't pretend to, but in many cities, the arts programs are administered in the economic development department of the cities, and that's because there is an economic impact for the arts. That's very common. That's where it's usually housed, or often, not for every city, certainly, many of them. The arts benefit us. Not only do they beautify the city, but there is an economic impact. And one last comment regarding the gentleman who spoke about the monuments and the arches and things. We had a wayfinding program proposed here several years ago, as I recall.
You had to bring that up, Bob.
Public Art Committee.
Sorry, which I thought was quite exciting, and we supported it, and it could be a public art project. I'm not sure what happened. I thought, and the Chamber of Commerce, not just me, our whole chamber thought, this was really a good project, and it was along the lines of what the gentleman spoke with. They were more monuments, not necessarily the arches like the Welcome to the City, but different markers especially on the eastern and southern end of town, and not sure what happened to that, but there were schematics, of them, and they were really good. So it's been proposed before. Maybe it can be re-examined or rebrought back again. Thanks.
Anyone else? Steven, Ken?
We killed that one.
Yeah, I had a few comments. First is about the Art Center. I did serve on that committee, and it was an exciting committee. I think it was great. Lots of enthusiasm. I really think we should move up the funding for that. It's really important. And the other one is about the traffic calming. I'm not sure what the urgency is because I don't know what the problem is. I really think before we move forward with that, we should have a public meeting about that and invite everybody's opinion. I don't think a lot of people know about that. And if there's ever a project I saw that would need an environmental impact analysis, that is certainly one of them. You don't even know what impact you're going to have about doing that. You have approved development there. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but I don't think we know what the impacts are, and I don't know what the urgency is to fund it. I don't see any traffic problem on Horton Street. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Anyone else? Questions, comments from council? Jennifer?
I'm very grateful to the staff for putting together such a comprehensive CIP plan and for thinking it through so well and looking at all the different pots of money and how we can creatively reconstruct funding for these important programs in our city. It's the, in 2011 we had a false start looking at this, and I feel like we've addressed it, or the staff has come back with a very well thought through plan. And what's remarkable is that it doesn't all happen immediately, but everything seems to be able to be funded except for the expressly unfunded pieces, which we can hopefully find funding for at some point as well. I also think it's very ambitious. And I think for our staff, capacity to oversee this number of projects is a real concern to me. I don't think we should make false promises of what we can achieve. I know that we are staffing. We will have greater capacity than we have over the last year, but if we could, we would do everything right now, and I don't think we can. So I just want to be mindful of that as we consider it. And I think this is the better place, perhaps, to discuss item number 48, which is the ECCL North-South Pedestrian Path. I made comments earlier. If you'd like me to repeat them, I'm happy to do so. That was my plan, to speak at this time, and maybe it makes more sense in this context, so I could just do it very briefly.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So my question is, when is phase 2 planned for ECCL, which is when the bike ped path is right now being considered? Staff's response was, we really don't know. And secondly, the bike ped path is fully accommodated in the current plans to be completed in phase 2. The reason it's not being completed in phase 1, as I've heard it, is because there's no funding to do so. It was estimated at about $725,000, which is what's in the SIP plan as unfunded project. But there's also been concerns about safety that have been raised. And so I just wanted to understand better from the school district if the funds were available to build it now, would it move forward? It is in our general plan. There is another source of funds. This project is also listed on our transportation impact fees, which we have not yet adopted, but will be considering in the next few months. And so to proceed with the path, it seems to me that we need plans to do so, we need money to do so, and we need to be able to schedule it so that the pool isn't unduly impacted. We know how hard it's been not having our swimming pool this last year. So my request to council is just to prioritize the bike ped path into some sort of funding, whether it's through transportation impact fees or through the SIP program, and to move forward on the path once the funding has been found, and not wait until phase 2, to basically have it as a separate project that could be completed. A quick conversation seemed staff seemed to think that it could be built while school was in session, that it wouldn't have a huge impact on the facility. I don't know if the school district would agree with that. We could work around pool closure and schedule, et cetera. So I think I want to reiterate how important I think it is. I've heard people say it doesn't go anywhere. I want to say that we're trying to build a wonderful community center and a wonderful new school. And if you leave out a bicycle pedestrian path that provides access through a super block, you are missing an incredible opportunity to make a statement about Emeryville and what we value, which is interconnectivity, parks and open space, family friendly, environmental sustainability. To me, all of those are addressed, and I would like to see a commitment from council to include it and find funding. It could be that it will cost much more than the $725,000 that's slated here, according to staff. We really don't know what it would cost. But I just want to reemphasize that as an important point.
Mayor Asher, I'd like
ahead,
to
Nora.
respond to Councilmember West on her request. I believe it is firmly the bike path is firmly set in Phase 2, and we have an extraordinarily complex project with the ECCL. We've struggled with it for over 8 or 9 years, and we're really coming up to a time crunch now. And I have to kind of agree with Councilmember Brinkman on your remarks that you couldn't support going forward with the ECCL unless the bike ped is in there. Our challenge here is we want to make sure that the ECCL moves forward, that we have these children, these students, able to be in a structure. September 15th, I think, is very ambitious, but anything, I could not support anything else that is going to delay or perhaps slow down the rebuilding of the pool and the gym and the progress of that development. So I couldn't support your request. I feel we've reached a real agreement on this council that they will move forward in Phase 2 with the bike ped path. But this ECCL project is very hard fought. It's still got a long way to go, and adding one more straw onto the top of this, I could not support.
I also want to make a comment. I think that the question of the bike ped path has actually been a very close question. And when we've come to vote on it, it's been a close question. And so for me, it's very important for me to break up that super block. I was so glad when the proposal for the ECCL came up to the Planning Commission, and they said that you had to make space for it in order to accommodate the bike path in the future. And I'm really grateful for that. Like you, I worry about Phase 2. I think that one of our goals should be to make our general plan come alive, right? And hopefully within our lifetime. And Phase 2 will be something that is many years out. It's a situation where I imagine, I'm trying to predict here, that the city will have to step in order to support the school district if we want that project built. When I look at the CIP, I'm a little bit nervous about the margins we have to work with here and how many projects we have in front of us. But I think that the traffic impact fees, future development, and the increasing need for bike infrastructure would be something that I would want to look at. But like you, the bike ped path is very important to me. So I understand that piece of it. I'm not sure that I want to commit the money necessary out of the CIP, right? That would be something that I would want to look at for the TIF. Ruth, or?
Yeah, I'll weigh in on Jennifer's request. The mayor mentioned it was a close vote. I was the swing vote. To bring.
You feel you're the swing vote, yeah. Okay.
And given that, let me just say that I think that having some circulation through the schoolyard is important. But as a former Emery Bay Village resident, I'm not very happy with it being right along there on the other side of their property, because when I lived there were a lot of security problems, a lot of vandalism by youth and other things, and I understand the plans have been made about how to maybe protect Emery Bay Village from vandalism and burglary and whatnot, but I haven't seen them. But the idea of circulation and putting in a finer grain of circulation in our city is a goal that I ascribe to. But if I look at $750,000, and I think that maybe there's ways to do 2 or 3 grains of sand that make a finer grain circulation system for that amount of money, that I might want to spread that around and create what I would consider to be more public good around in different parts of the city. So I also do not support taking money from some other project in the CIP. We have far too many demands on our meager resources to put that bike path in any faster than what we have time to discuss security and safety concerns and have conversations with the other stakeholders about it. So I just want to say that I don't think the timing to try to push this one through as a pet project makes sense, because there's too many other things to weigh. And I'll just remind you that there was a project near and dear to my heart that isn't even on the CIP anymore, which is a lot less expensive.
What's that?
Which is opening up a dam gate that would connect 55th and 53rd Street. So, and that would be a whole lot less expensive, and that would add a grain of interconnective, that we need.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a good street grid system in town.
Well, and I don't imagine you're going to find a lot of. I think you might have support for that on the council.
Well, it's not in the it is
not, right.
not on the CIP this time.
No,
so
it's not.
we're losing other bike ped options, right? So.
No, if I could vote for the 53rd to 55th Street path, I would, but I can't.
I know,
because
you're
I live there.
recused,
But
so,
I'm also surprised it's not on the CIP. Yeah.
So I just don't think it's right to push for one particular thing when there's so many other things that we could bring back, or that we could do more for that amount of money in other parts of town and spread it around.
It's interesting because the Christie Avenue path, which we're moving forward on, isn't breaking up a super block like this would, but because we've received a grant to do it, and it's considered part of the Bay Trail, it's a regional gain. It seemed like an easy thing for us to do. It's a wonderful thing for us to do, but to do it in one place where at least bikes can get through and pedestrians can get through, but we're improving the experience, and then to compare it with this is an interesting contrast, I guess.
Well, always going for what can be funded is
exactly. Yeah.
It's a picture. It's pragmatism, and it's low-hanging fruit, and all the rest of that. I agree.
I also, if the school district felt more secure with this, I'd be more interested in going along with this. But we heard loud and clear that the school district didn't want the path because of safety reasons.
Exactly.
So for us to force the path on them and then say, okay, you have the path, now you have the safety problems, and this from a man that has had his house broken into 3 times in a short period of time, let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff happening out there that you have to be concerned about. So I'm really concerned about the safety of the kids, and I think that needs to be priority number 1.
Okay, we beat that to death. Can we move along?
Good.
Mayor Hatcher,
I don't think you have support for that right now, Jennifer.
No, but when we do get to the transportation impact fees, we can talk about that again.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Other comments on the CIP?
I have a comment, since we have 3 very illustrious people here speaking on the Art Center. I do have a couple of comments on the Art Center. It's pretty clear to me that unless we have a public-private partnership with this Art Center, we're not going to get very far. And my question to your board is, has any effort been made to interest some rich megabucks person in like the Leisure Center in Walnut Creek? That's what I'm really looking for. Has your board considered any kind of actions like that or any plan to go after these rich people?
Well, the board, and Sharon, you could correct me or add to this, has been somewhat dormant since 2011, since redevelopment funding brought it down from a really multidisciplinary art center down to an interim art center, really, something that's going to rehab a blighted building for the most part and make it useful for the community as a community space that would house various art programs, a permanent home for the celebration of the arts, but also a place where lectures, movies, and other activities, community activities, can occur. So the answer is we haven't done that. That's not to say we cannot do that.
Is it something you might consider?
Definitely consider. I think it's difficult to do.
Well, I think that, I mean, you know, one of the things that we ran up against, and I guess now it's even more so, is that is just knowing about the whatever the absolute certainty of that building being the building that we were, you know, I mean, it's hard to raise those kinds of funds for capital programs. I mean, that we kept bumping, we did bump up against that because
you can't go out and solicit that until you know you have a building or something to sell, quite frankly. But I do think even when that occurs, if you did approve an earlier funding, I think it'd be very difficult to get any major contribution like the Leisure Center. It would be very nice to have, yes.
Well, my second question is, have you presented to the city manager some concrete plans of a really scaled down operation?
We have those plans. I'm not sure we handed them to the city manager, but the plans have been done. We have a couple on the board. We have Andy Getz and Rich Robbins, who are very involved in development, as you might know, that have looked at the building, and that's where the figure $3.9 million came from, was after they're looking at it with their engineers to figure out what can be done for a certain dollar amount, a lesser dollar amount than we initially had.
But the council here, we don't know what we would be buying with that 3.9. It's in the plan. I know it's in the out years, but before I strongly support this. I strongly support doing something with that building, but I think I have to have a little more information before I push it up into the 15, 16, or 14, 15.
Well, we do have that, and we can get that, what we have, to the city manager. But there's one thing that I would like to add, and it's really the cost of construction is going to increase every year, as you can imagine. And the fact of the matter is that the funding for this project is already in place. And you're generating maybe 1% interest a year, if you're lucky, 1%. But the money comes from Pixar, which is already dedicated to this project. And the second part of it, a good portion of it, is your general capital money, which is really redevelopment bond, from what I understand. I may be wrong on this. Redevelopment bond money specifically for a number of projects, including this one. So I think the money is available. I may be wrong on that, and I could be corrected. But if the money is available, I don't see why we couldn't move it up. We would get it built, subject to your review, the city's review of the project.
Yeah, Mr. Biddle, could you clarify? I'd like to understand what the amount is from Pixar, and then my understanding was that the bond money is tied up with the state still.
So first and foremost is the property, which we do not control. So that is part of the long-range property management plan, which is still before the Department of Finance, and that will take some time to work its way through. So I think you have to keep that in mind. There is approximately 1.4. It's in the CIP of monies that were provided by Pixar that are dedicated specifically to the project. Then there's approximately $3.8 million of bond funds that the City Council and the successor agency recently approved a funding agreement to allow for the transfer of those bond monies from the agency to the city that could then be used on projects that were identified in your implementation plan and that are also located within the Shell Mound Park redevelopment project area. That agreement or the funding for that was approved on the ROPS for 1415A, which starts July 1st. The agreement was approved by the Oversight Board. It's sitting with the Department of Finance. They have essentially 45 days from, I believe it was May 2nd that it was transmitted to them. So we will know sometime this month whether they are going to object to that agreement and the transfer of the money from the agency to the city. So assuming it is, they approve it, then as of July 1, the agency can transfer the money to the city, the $3.8 million, and then those funds are available, as I say, for projects identified in the implementation plan. This is one of those, and that's also located in the Shell Mound Park redevelopment project area, which I believe it is. But I think your staff has probably earmarked it for something else, and I'll shut up.
Yeah, he's correct.
Yeah.
So the additional bond funds have already been proposed to be used for the South Bayfront Bridge.
Right.
Because the, what is it, 11.2, Maurice, that's tied up right now is insufficient to build the bridge. So we need the additional $3.5 million to do so. The $2.5 million on top of the Pixar money for the art center, coming out of the general capital fund, really is coming from the quote-unquote boomerang dollars, which are, you know, for all intents and purposes, general fund dollars. It's just subject to the policy that you have in place right now, which is the residual dollars that are coming in every 6 months from the county. You all have your policy to set 75% of that over into capital.
Right.
It's really just general fund dollars, but that's what this is.
Mayor Asher, I have another question for
Go ahead, Nora.
Michael. When is the long-range management plan going to be solidified and in place? Because we can't touch that building.
No.
We
Don't have that property.
So what, you know, that's another unknown in this particular property.
Well, the plan was submitted to the Department of Finance.
February.
Was it February? Yeah. And there is no time frame in the statute by which they're obligated to make a decision.
Unconscionable.
And I think one of the key issues or one of the key hang-ups is this notion of, as it relates to South Bayfront Site B, is this notion that because it's being transferred to the city for redevelopment, that the city would be obligated to enter into compensation agreements with all the taxing entities, an obligation that is clearly not provided by statute and is perhaps subject to some cleanup legislation that's pending. It's in the legislature right now to make it clear that that isn't an obligation. So if the Department of Finance comes back, as they have with many other jurisdictions, and said, we're going to approve your plan on the condition that you require the city to enter into a compensation agreement related to Site B, then there's going to be a question to the council that we would discuss in that room over there, whether we want to adhere to that, and you already know my position on it. I think the Department of Finance is dead wrong. I'd share with you that in the legislative record relative to the passage of AB 1484, which was the amendment to the Dissolution Act, there is a passage from the Department of Finance that makes it very clear that compensation agreements are not required. And yet here you have them taking a different stance now when they're actually implementing these long-range property management plans. So,
Well, Mayor Asher.
Yes, Nora?
Just to summarize, we all want this art center, but given the problems that are involved here with the state and with the ownership of the building, I think the proposal by staff to have this in the out years is a reasonable one, but in the meantime, I think, I would hope your board of directors would be working on concrete proposals that the council could take a look at, and if things change, to come back and talk again. But right now, I would support what the staff has in there for the out years.
And I understand that.
I just said, I mean, I had a question. I know that in both Sabrina's narrative for the CIP and for the budget, and also Charlie, in yours, there was a mention of things that you were going to be doing in the next 2 years, and it just mentioned, among a list of other things, and working on cultural arts facility. What does, I mean, I'm just don't know how active that is or what that really means. I'm just trying to think. That was kind of a question too about does everything start on the city side as well at the 5-year point, or is there?
We don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one last point. We have been dormant really for 3 years and another 4 years being dormant. I'm not sure the state will allow us to do that. But you've noticed, I think, that there have been several board members who are no longer on the board as
Right.
they've left because it's, in their mind, not going anywhere. So I'm cautious about that, and I'm not sure what the future holds for the ECA board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I have just one more comment. This is a wonderful document, and the process that was taken to develop this CIP is, I believe, just outstanding. Everybody that wanted to had a chance to get their input. There is one very, very small project that keeps popping up, and that's the dog park down at Halleck. You know, we're talking about 40, 50K, a very small project. It's going to have a very large impact on a corner of our city that could use a little assistance. And I would urge the council to consider pushing that ahead to add some, you know, this particular part of the city is going to be undergoing some, if all things go as they propose with Sherwin-Williams, they're going to have a lot of construction, a lot of upset. Having a dog park there, and then perhaps hooking up down Wood Street with an extended dog park, working with West Oakland, WOCA. If we could start with that small parcel there, improve it, have people use it, it's going to improve that area where we have substantial problems right now.
I would support that.
So,
Yeah.
do I have support there?
I would think so, yeah.
All right, we got support for the dog park.
Okay.
That's all I have. The rest of it, I think, is well done.
I want to give a nod to Brad's presentation for the gateways and the monuments, and it's like, you're right, it can make a real statement and real difference, and I don't want to lose sight of that. It's in terms of being able to talk about it in future years. I go to the Laurel District in Oakland. I see a gorgeous kind of arch over MacArthur. Same with Diamond District. It's, you know, there's it actually does a lot to kind of make a place, like there's a there, so I do support that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I do too, and I wonder how you arrived at the 3.5 million, or if there's some maybe less costly alternative to that we could consider as well. There's some way to. Do you want to explain that?
It was just off the top of my head as far as.
Big,
I mean, literally construction cost on a couple arches and a monument and whatever we end up, doing at the water tower. Around, that would be a safe amount, but.
But maybe we could do something a little bit scaled back that might still make a statement.
Ruth, are you considering a placeholder?
Well, sure. I mean, I don't.
In the out years.
Yes.
Because Maurice has his hands full in the
Yeah.
next.
No, I mean, I don't see how we have the means to pursue this in the immediate future, but
But a placeholder for the out
but
years.
I do think it really adds a lot to the community
yeah.
identity.
And I like the idea of incorporating it into our public art master plan. You know, that
is
is
a good
something that
idea.
has been asked to be funded in the next year or so. And if there's a way to address the gateway and
Good
identity as part of that, I mean, Emeryville is about art everywhere we go. So let's incorporate it.
Yeah.
I just have one comment. There's just little words of warning. There's going to be a lot more railroad traffic coming through here. And I see that we're not funding anything as far as the quiet zones, but if you happen to go down through West Oakland, you'll see that the railroad tracks are being expanded, and there's going to be a lot of activity here in the next probably couple of years, and it's going to be a very noisy city here. So,
Well, Kurt, if I could respond to that, I think if we want to work on those quiet zones, we have got to pull in Richmond, Albany,
I agree.
El Cerrito, Berkeley, and Oakland, and work together as a sub-regional to get some moxie. Just going up against the railroad by ourselves is not going to happen.
And it impacts us all. And there should be other funding sources beyond our CIP.
Exactly.
That you talked about the port, right? And also MTC funds, perhaps, that could work towards
So
that.
perhaps we can start that effort.
yeah, maybe
So
start a
just
committee.
at the first ad hoc committee meeting of the goods movement plan as part of ACTC, the consultants talked about grade separations, and I said anywhere you put in grade separations, you need to add and/or quiet zones, and so they made that change because just the engineering isn't feasible to do grade separations everywhere. You know, we'd be digging in the mud to try to do that. So through the goods movement, the countywide goods movement plan, that's looking at the port and all these other things. It's like, you know, that's a community sweetener as a mitigation measure that we can make sure is front and center in terms of the expansion.
Ruth, what's the representation on the goods committee?
I'm on the committee.
But how about Richmond, Albany, El Cerrito?
Well, this is Alameda County Transportation, so.
How about
Commission.
Oakland, Berkeley on
So,
there?
Yeah, they are.
And Albany?
No, Albany doesn't have any at-grade crossings.
Well, maybe that may be a place where you could pull together Oakland and Berkeley on this.
We're talking.
Good.
Yeah, keep us updated on that. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
There was one other item in the staff report at the bottom of page 5 and top of page 6, which is talking about the South Bayfront Bridge and Horton Landing Park, and it asks for council direction of whether to put the project on hold until the litigation is all settled, or redirect general resources to start the project in a timely manner, and put other projects on hold potentially until additional funding is available to fill in those funds. And I just wanted to check in with the council. To me, I think if we know we want to go forward with the South Bayfront Bridge, which we've heard from several different committee inputs and we've heard it here at council as well, I think it makes sense to direct staff to move forward on that project even before the litigation has been settled, if we think that there's a way to back fund that project.
But what would we have to delay if we move forward on that?
Well, I'm going to turn to staff because I think they thought that through.
In looking at the timeline of, and Maurice, you can chime in on the timeline on the project, but just in terms of even if we start now, we're in terms of the negotiations with the railroads and finalizing the design, all of that will take quite a while. Maybe you can kind of comment on that.
Yeah, I estimate at least 9 months to a year of prep work to get it to be able to bid. The plans have been sitting on the shelf for a few years now. We want to make sure that the codes haven't changed, so make sure that our design is still up to code, as well as we need to work with the railroad, get agreements there. We need to get right-of-way acquisition easements with Novartis and Madison Marquette. And very time-consuming is a grade separation approval from the PUC. So that's probably about a year's worth of work, 9 months to a year, and then we'd be able to bid it out, hopefully. So
So
You
there
know,
would be
the cost to fund that work.
So there would be the cost to fund that work. I think you had 700,000.
Well, I put 100,000 in the first year, and then the rest of the money, assuming we got all the approvals we needed. Then the last time we were talking to the railroad, they wanted at least $500,000 up front just to start the project. And so, you know, I don't know that you'd want to start paying that out until you had all your project funding.
Yeah, because you're buying essentially a window of time.
From the railroad.
Not only are you buying a permanent aerial easement, but you're also buying the right to sort of interact with them for a period of time to actually construct the bridge. And without knowing that you're ready to go, you're just throwing money away if you
Right.
enter into that.
But there are other places to move ahead so that we won't have to wait that entire year. I mean, we already waited that year and then it all ended, right?
Right, but if we
Almost.
get our PUC permit approved, that would mean we have our contract with the railroad, which would mean then that we would have paid them for the window of time to build the bridge.
So that doesn't sound like a smart thing to do now.
Correct.
But there are other things, as I understand it, that could move this forward so that when we do have that,
Plan.
Well, the design's complete, so unless we're ready to build it, you know, there's really not a whole lot to do.
I thought you just said we need to update the design.
We need to take a look at it. Hopefully, there's not a whole lot we're going to need to change.
Okay.
So what we need to do is negotiate easements to build it with Novartis, and then permanent easements with Madison Marquette for connecting to their garage and constructing the ramps on their property. So those are the things we would do if we knew we were going to have the funding to build it right away.
So is there a point in proceeding as if we're going to have the funding, or am I hearing now a different thing, which is we just need to wait?
I think it's, I mean, I guess the other thing I was going to ask Maurice is what year, what was the code that was in place when the plans were built? And so they have to be updated to current code, and then by the time we actually put it out to bid, are we into another code time period?
Every
as
3
well?
years.
Right.
So that's,
It's not really the building code, it's more the bridge designs, and have there been any change in seismic, codes and that kind of thing. So hopefully not.
And if I may, to Councilmember West, I think that and I'm sorry if I phrase this in a strange way in the staff report, I think kind of part of the point I was trying to make here was also, in the event that we would lose the case with the state, there's a deficit of about $8 million that we'd have to come up with. And so the question was kind of, are there projects, and maybe this is the point you're making, projects that we have in here now that we would want to pause and basically hold on to that $8 million. In looking at what Maurice put forward for the next 2 years, I now feel much more comfortable that we would be, just at the pace that we're going to move and looking at all of our fund balances, that we would be able to shift things around within that 5-year period and come up with that shortfall.
Okay.
So I
maybe
think we're
it's
okay.
moot right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor Asher, I'd like to move the adoption of move the resolution to adopt the CIP.
Second that.
I have one question for Maurice, and here I'm looking at the street tree program, and one of the things that I've been wondering about is if you've ever thought of working with, or if you know anything about Urban Relief, which does tree planting for our neighbors. They employ local youth, and then also they have, my understanding is that their contract with cities allows residents to go and purchase trees in order to plant on their properties.
So I've heard of that organization. What we really need to do is a comprehensive inventory of what we have, how many trees we have, how many tree wells are open. So if we knew that we had a project to plant trees in a certain number of tree wells, and we wanted to do it with working with that group, we could definitely organize something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just curious.
Call the question.
Motion and a second. Anyone opposed?
And this is including the Halleck Beach Dog Park.
Yes.
And how are we handling the idea of putting some money potentially towards the markers or gateway or others? How would you handle that?
We could put that in as an unfunded item, just so it doesn't fall off. And as a placeholder, we could put the 3.9.
I'd also like to suggest...
You'll have another crack at this. And
yeah.
18 months or 2 years from now.
I'd also like to suggest that Ruth's Gate become an unfunded item on the CIP. I would like to see it on there.
That's my pet peeve.
The Pickle Works Gate.
Is there a third person?
Is there a third person that would like to
Me
see
too.
it? Okay.
Okay.
43rd, 53rd.
So it's a connection between
Unfunded,
55th
but
and
let's have it on there, please.
unfunded.
Yeah.
Third of the cost of some other projects.
Okay, anyone opposed with those additions? No? Okay.
We have a number.
Move the funding for the CIP.
Okay.
Move the resolution.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second. Oh.
Okay, anyone in opposition? Nope, okay, that passes as well.
Do we want to stand up and take a stretch break before the next item?
Oh, that's
Do we need
good
a little
idea.
break?
I need a break.
Okay. Let's do 5 minutes. The gavel. It's way too much.
Okay.
See, they're, they don't have them in control yet. They're-
Where are we? Which item?
Budget.
8.2?
8.2.
Guy we were talking.
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
They need to have some public comments.
Have a motion on it?
Public comment?
You have a motion and a second. Any public comments?
I have an amendment.
Give the
Oh, that was
lady a
Davis and
chance.
Atkins. Okay.
Yeah, she says she has her money dress on, notice the green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we saw your dress.
Giving me all the money.
All the money.
All right. Okay, let me go through. I do have a change. Sorry, really quick. That I just want to make sure.
Complicated.
So we have, this is the budget, you saw it last week, just to confirm the changes that are different from what you have in the packet. Because of the timing of the noticing, the amendments are not in the packet. So number one, we have the $130,000 that we're moving out of the general fund for the ROPS per the city attorney's direction. The assistant city manager, per the direction last week, we've lowered in the second year to be the same amount, which gives us about $54,000 of savings, and added the additional goal to HR's narrative on employee performance evaluations. There is a new request that came up late today, which is for ECAP, which is to add an additional $3,700 in each year for the appropriation. The contract is coming to you in your next meeting, where we'll get into the scope and you can dig into those numbers. But just so, because of the timing of this, we're asking for the appropriation now. You can always change that. Bottom line, it leaves you a fund balance of $177,000 in the first year, $50,000 in the second year.
Wow.
The appropriation, the Finance Committee did meet last week. No changes, recommended to go forward and adopt the budget as proposed. I did want to make note that there was a question last week about the internal service funds, that there were some negatives, some deficits that were showing in the operating funds. Those are all by design. It is to eat into some of the large fund balances that you have there. They are all being looked at, and we've looked at them on a 5-year projection, and the negatives that you do see there are no negative fund balances. It's just negatives on the operating side of things. So we recommend that you adopt the budget as amended. The resolution, just to read into the record then, with those changes, the expenditures for fiscal year 14-15 are $31,304,367, and the expenditures in the second year are $31,820,142.
And can I ask for a friendly amendment, which is to increase the celebration of the arts from $30,000 to $40,000 per year?
I'd second that.
And just
consider that?
Yes.
Out of the general fund or out of the public art fund?
Oh. Do you have a recommendation?
It is currently funded out of the public art fund.
My intention, but I don't
we
know.
could increase it within. There is room within the public art fund. We have looked at that to absorb the $10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take that as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd support that as well.
And that's
We have
okay
a
with
motion and a
Councilmember
second,
Davis?
But maybe we should hear from the public
Yes,
if anyone
that's a
from
great
the public would like to speak on this item 8.2. No? Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed? No. Okay. On to item.
Can I just say that was a great job on the budget? Thank you, staff. Thank you. It made it easy for us after last week's presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it made it really clear, and so I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Item 8.4, Parkside Park. Jennifer, do you have to recuse yourself?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry. I'm so spaced out. I am going to leave the dais because I own property within 500 feet of this location.
All right, so here we're talking about the Parkside Park, and would also add there's private parking associated with it as well. And we're going to talk about two agreements. There's an agreement for exchange of property as well as public improvements agreement. There's a copy of this PowerPoint, a hard copy if anybody wants one right here. So first, the agreement for exchange of property. It's a two-party agreement between the city, and we refer to them as the doctors, and it's really Emery, PJ, and CM LLC. So we like doctors, it's easier. And the agreement relates to exchange of property interest to create a city park and private parking. There's no exchange of money between the parties. Exchange value is equal. The agreement also provides for termination of existing reciprocal access easements. The agreement also recognizes that both parties are, the property in their after condition is subject to existing utility easements for storm drain and water. Storm drain is the city facility, water is East Bay Mud. The agreement for exchange of property has a condition precedent to the close of escrow, requiring the city to approve a general plan and zoning amendments which are technical in nature. Currently, the agreement in your packet calls for a close of escrow by July 31st, 2014, but there is a need to reconduct a planning commission hearing on their recommendation to the council on the general plan and zoning amendments. That'll be going back to the planning commission at their meeting on Thursday, June 26th, and so the close of escrow would be pushed back to August 16th. This is a site survey map of the existing property. It's property along the north edge of Stanford Avenue between Hollis and Doyle Street. You can see there are two parcels that are sort of landlocked there, parcel 1, parcel 2. Those are the two parcels that are currently owned by the doctors. And then what is identified as parcel 5 is all the property around it, and that is the city's property. And the doctors, the owners of the parcel 1 and parcel 2, they also have rights across all of the city's property, parcel 5, for access such that they can get in and out of the driveways that are on the city's property, maneuver and get into their parking spaces that are in parcel 1 and parcel 2. Likewise, the city has access easements across parcel 1 and parcel 2 because cars will cross over them to get in and out. So that is the existing configuration of the legal parcels as they exist today. In order to create the park and the parking, they're going to be an exchange of property. So the doctor's exchange parcel, which is the property to be conveyed by the doctors to the city, is this parcel 1. And so that's the existing parcel that's on the far west side of that prior map that I showed you. So the doctors will convey that parcel to the city. The city's exchange parcel, which is the property conveyed by the city to the doctors, is this area shown here. And it's the area that's sort of shown in dots that surrounds the doctor's existing parcel 2 that's on the east side. So the dotted property is the property that the city will be conveying to the doctors. And then the configuration of the property after exchange will look like this. So parcel A is the big large parcel to the left along the west side, and parcel B is the parcel that would be owned by the doctors. You will also see that there is a sort of two hatched lines running east to west across the property about 20 feet wide, and that's the area denoted where the storm drain and water main exist today. And so there's easements, existing easements that will continue to exist across the doctor's property and the city's property. As I noted, the city and doctors will also terminate existing reciprocal easements that burdens both parties' property. The current access easement accommodates, as I noted, vehicular maneuvering and circulation that needs to be maintained for the doctor's 41 existing spaces in its new configuration. So you can't just use the same amount of land area and stick it down and create 41 spaces. You have to provide some areas for them to maneuver. So while the size of the parcel to be conveyed to the doctors by the city is larger than the parcel that's going to be conveyed to the city by the doctors, the termination of the reciprocal access easement affects or benefits the larger city parcel to a greater extent, and thus the value that we've arrived at is of equal value. I also indicated that there is a need to deal with a general plan and zoning issue. So the existing general plan land use designation for the property that is out there today, the current general plan land use designation applicable to both properties is mixed use with residential. So here's your current general plan land use map, and if you can locate, I'm not sure I have a little pointer, but you can sort of see a green circle up there in the general vicinity of Stanford Avenue, and beneath it you can see that it's still with that sort of reddish, for lack of a better term, color, which denotes the mixed use with residential. So that's the current land use designation that is in place today. So at the time the doctors obtained their entitlements to put in their office facility in August 2010, and they agreed to the exchange of property as part of their conditions of approval, their property was designated mixed use with residential in the new 2009 general plan, and it was zoned MUR, mixed use with residential, in the interim zoning regulations. And so as a condition of this exchange that we're doing today, the doctors want to retain essentially the status quo. They want the existing general plan land use designation of MUR that's out there today for their property to remain, but they also want rezone the property back to MUR from park open space. So for the general plan amendment, there's no general plan land use amendment is needed or requested for the doctor's property. The general plan amendment as to the doctor's property that is needed is it requires a residential density designation be provided to the property, since that was not provided in the 2009 general plan. That was something that was overlooked. It's a technical amendment that needs to be taken care of. So that's what needs to be dealt with in terms of the general plan amendment relative to the doctor's property in the after condition. The general plan amendment as to the city's property in the after condition is to change the existing land use designation from mixed use with residential, MUR, to park open space. That's what the general plan land use or amendments are about. As to the zoning amendment, sort of 3 years after the doctors agreed to the land swap condition back in 2010, the city adopted a new zoning regulations in 2013, and we rezoned the city's and doctors' property currently designated mixed use with residential in the general plan to park open space. So the doctor's reasonable request is to rezone their property to MUR in a manner consistent with the general plan, and thereby maintain the status quo as they understood it to be back in 2010 when they agreed to undertake this exchange of property. The other agreement that is before you is a public improvements agreement, and that's a three-party agreement between the city, the doctors, and Archstone. And Archstone is the party developing the housing directly to the north of the property for the park and the parking lot. And so that agreement provides that once escrow closes, and so the parcels have been reconfigured per the exchange agreement, that Archstone will have right of access to the city and the doctor's property to construct the private parking and park improvements. So once Archstone completes work on the south side of its most easterly building, so that's the part of the building that is right next to where the permanent parking improvements will be, they can commence the work. So the first phase of their improvements is to set up striping of the temporary parking on the west end of the existing parking lot that is out there. And they estimate we provide them up to 30 days to complete that activity. Once the temporary parking is set up and the doctors have located all their parking there, then the second phase of construction is that of the permanent parking improvements on the doctor's newly reconfigured parcel on the west end, and that should take up to 3 months to complete. The third phase of construction is after the permanent parking improvements were done, the doctors move all their parking onto the permanent parking, and then Archstone constructs the park improvements, and that should take up to approximately 6 months to complete. And the total work valued is $861,000, and that figure will be inserted into a provision in the public improvements agreements in Section 13 that requires them to provide performance and payment bonds to guarantee that the work is done and that they actually make payment to the people doing the work. That's a standard provision that we require on all projects that we do, is a bond for the value of the hard work. So the current site utilization out there today, this sort of purple hashed area shows where essentially the parking is being utilized currently by the doctors, and then to the north of that line, between that sort of line and the property line between the Archstone property and the city property is where Archstone is doing various staging activities in connection with constructing their project. Temporary parking, once they start, will be essentially shifted all to the west end of the existing parking area that's out there. There's no construction. It's really just a matter of restriping and making sure there's 41 spaces out there. So once that is in place, then Archstone will start construction on the permanent parking and park improvements. And this is a depiction of it. You see the permanent parking improvements on the east side and the park on the west side. And so with that, we're recommending that the council approve both of these agreements. And then, as I noted, subsequently, as a condition to the exchange agreement, there will be an item going before the Planning Commission relative to the general plan and zoning amendments, and then those amendments will come back to the council at your meeting on July 1st. The zoning is an ordinance, so that takes 2 readings. The second reading would be July 15th. I'll note that an ordinance second reading must be conducted at a regular meeting. After your July 15th meeting, we do not have another regular meeting until September 2nd. Escrow closes 30 days after that second reading. So if we're pushed back into September, we're now into an October closing period and sort of delay to bringing this project finally to fruition. So if you have any questions, I'm free to answer, or...
I just have one question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Kurt.
In regards to the $861,000 cost that's being borne by Archstone, if a cost exceeds that $861,000, does the city have any obligation to pay?
No, that's just no, we're not paying for any of the cost of construction. And I will note that currently is just it's an estimate of what we believe it to be. We will actually see the actual construction contract, and so to the extent that dollar figure increases or varies from that estimate, the exact number is what will go into the agreement.
Any questions from council?
Nope.
Let's hear from the public. Anyone want to speak on this item?
Well, I will note just briefly, Ray Buddy, counsel for the doctors group is here, and Darlene Kostafis, who's the representative of the doctors, is here as well.
Hi, I have a public comment. I'm Jennifer West of 5514 Doyle Street, number 9. So I know that I'm recused from this item because it's within a certain distance of my property, and yet I was not noticed of the Planning Commission general plan or the zoning consideration that they took. That was an oversight by staff, and so a number of my neighbors are concerned that it wasn't properly noticed, and it will be reheard, as I understand it, at the next Planning Commission. It's also a concern to me that it's a little bit messy to be considering a land swap now and the general plan amendment at another time because they're related, and I know that one is contingent on the other, but for the purpose of public input, I think it makes sense to consider them at one time, or at least to allow comments on both. And I believe a number of my neighbors are interested in this, but apparently didn't come tonight thinking it's going to be on the July 1st agenda, or was confused about the different items. I would like to say that if the zoning is to go back to the mixed use residential, which I understand makes sense, that's what it was when it was first approved or agreed to. My concern is that if at some point this property will be built on, because it's designated as mixed use residential, that actually it would mean a disconnect between the new park that's planned and the existing park, which is a linear park on the other side of Doyle Street. And would it make more sense to have, if there were to be a building at some point, to have it on the Hollis end and the park actually contiguous to the rest of the linear park on Stanford? I don't know that it will be built on. It's a rather small site, and it is required parking for the property across the street. But I'm just concerned about what that would mean further down the line, and what the purpose is to have a building or project approved on that spot. My main concern also is that we spent a lot of time and money on the park design, and that this land swap, I thought, was more or less complete so that we could do that design, and then to have it all thrown into question again is a little disconcerting in terms of the process, especially for folks who are interested in that. And my last question is, Archstone, I thought, had new owners, and I'm not sure if the agreement is with Archstone or with the new owners of that property. Thank you.
It's with Archstone.
It's with Archstone. Thank you, Mr. Biddle.
The new company assumed all their obligations.
Okay, listen to the presentation. This is the first I've heard of this, so I'm coming into this completely cold. It wasn't explained to me well enough, pardon me, why this swap is being proposed. So I have to presume it's because of the private owners, the so-called doctors, that they want it to happen. So if that's the case, I don't think that the city should be put out in any way, because it's not our idea, it's not to our benefit, unless I'm mistaken. And then I also thought I heard Mr. Biddle say that in this land swap, the city would get a smaller parcel of land, if I'm not mistaken. And of course that, I can't see how we benefit from a smaller piece of land in a land swap, and so that wouldn't work to our advantage. It just doesn't seem to be in our interests, unless everything I understood is not correct. I don't think that we should be entertaining this. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments?
Thank you, Mayor Asher and council members. I'm Ray Buddy, and I'm representing the doctors, the property owners. I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to say that Staff was great to work with. Mr. Biddle, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Bryant, your staff did a great job. This was a complicated issue because of our trying to work out all the details of the 3 different parties and some issues that slowed down the project across the way. And then I think, as the council knows and as staff knows, it wasn't the doctors who wanted to do this land swap, it was the city desired the park. And so as a condition of the parking, when it was placed on this property, they were asked to agree to cooperate in a future land swap, which they agreed to do, and that's why we're here today for this. So I'm just here to answer questions if you have any questions, and beyond that, I'm going to say that I think tomorrow the one thing you'll hear about tonight's meeting is that you approve the dog park. So you'll get a lot of, I think you'll get a lot of kudos for that. Okay. Any questions for me at all? Thank you.
Comments from council? Questions?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Nora.
Clearly, the general plan has designated this as MUR, and it's clearly in the interest of the city to move forward and see that this project is completed, specifically that the park is completed. And I think there's been a few stumbles along the way. I'm especially concerned about the lack of noticing to the neighborhood, and I'm really concerned about that, Charlie, because I envision that we have a process that one of the first things and one of the most important things in the whole planning process is if people in the area are supposed to be notified, that's done just pro forma. It just happens. So we hope this never comes up again, that a glitch like this. But having said that, we're all looking forward to having this little park here with the dog park that's included in it. And I'd like to see this move forward, and I'd like to move the resolution, the first resolution, and I'm looking for support.
I'll second it.
I actually would have liked to have seen the process work better. I think that the public, if they're going to weigh in, might have something to say about mixed-use residential designation. They might have something to say about the density on this site. And in some ways, I don't know that we're doing anyone any favors by making this decision ahead of that. And so for me, I'm not going to vote in support of the resolution because I feel like it should have been done differently, and that we need and should respect and prioritize public input on this. Mr. Biddle?
I just want to be clear, you are not making any decision as to the general plan or the zoning this evening. That will come back to you at your July 1st meeting, and you can get into those issues as to height and density based on the recommendations that you'll get from the Planning Commission from their meeting on June 26th. So I want to assure you that you're not prejudging any of those actions by approving this tonight.
Yeah.
Call the question.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember West is recused. Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
And Mayor Asher.
No. Okay.
Move the resolution agreeing the...
Title only?
No, this is
Oh,
the
this is the-
resolution. Move the resolution approving the project improvements agreement.
Oh, I see. Okay. 8.4.2.
I'll second that.
I'm going to vote against this as well. Anyone else opposed? Nope. Okay.
I'd call for...
Roll call vote?
Roll call vote
Okay,
on
let's
this.
go ahead and do that.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember West is recused. Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
And Mayor Asher.
No. Okay, on to 8.5.
Move the second reading.
I'll second that.
By title only?
It's a second reading.
Yeah.
It should have been on the consent calendar.
It should have been, right,
Roll
exactly.
it.
Okay, there we go.
No, because
Anyone opposed?
No.
No, okay. Communications and reports.
Dogs might be.
Mayor Asher?
Yeah,
I
Charlie,
have-
go ahead.
I have a report on the Planning Commission's actions at their May 22nd meeting. There were 3 items on their agenda, and they're listed here on your agenda. First was a relocation of the easement at Bay Street, which was a modification to a recorded subdivision map. That was approved by the commission. That decision is appealable to the city council, and the deadline for appeals on that item is this coming Friday, June 6th at 4 p.m. If the council wishes to appeal that to yourselves, of course, this would be the time to do that. The second item was the rezoning and general plan amendment related to the doctor's property that Mr. Biddle just described. The Planning Commission did vote on a recommendation. However, as Mr. Biddle indicated to you, we had a notification error, a staff error, and so that item is going to be brought back to the commission again for redoing at their next meeting on June 26th, and it will then come to you for your consideration on July 1st. And finally, the commission had a study session on the Emeryville Berkeley Oakland Transit Study, or EBOTS, and made a number of useful comments. That item will also be coming to you for a study session at your next meeting on June 17th, or I should say before your next meeting on June 17th at a special meeting. And I'd be happy to
Anyone
respond to any questions you may have.
Questions? No? Other reports from department heads? No? No? Okay. Council members?
I guess probably just me. I'm not going to be running for re-election, so it's been a good 5 years, and I've appreciated being up here, but I know the city's in good hands financially, and I look forward to, I'm still here. I'm going to be more active in another part of this area, so I wish everybody the best of luck.
Anyone else? Council members?
I have, I just wanted to report that at the last stop waste meeting, we did pass our household hazardous waste fee for the county at a close vote, but it was a relief after our year of discussion around that.
Okay. Anyone else? No?
Oh, I have
Nora,
a
go
comment.
ahead.
Yeah, we have to get serious about somebody for the mosquito abatement district. Come on.
We do. We need a representative.
Maybe we can announce vacancies on some blogs in town.
Yeah, perhaps. Okay, with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you,
job.
everybody. Meeting.
I can't believe we got out of it.
Panginoon.